What if magic wasn't fantasy at all, but the single most dangerous force the system has spent centuries teaching you to forget? Imagine a child standing in a darkened room, staring at a candle's flame. The wax drips like slow tears, the air thick with incense. And in that moment, the child feels something stir, pulse beneath the skin of reality. But the adults hush them, laugh, say it's imagination. That laughter was the first spell, the one that closed your eyes. From the beginning, you were told magic belonged to fairy tales, costumes, special effects, and yet the real sorcery was not in the illusions but in the erasure itself. You were trained to exchange wonder for certainty, intuition for obedience, visions for rules. Every ritual you might have performed instinctively was buried beneath textbooks and schedules, leaving you to forget the language of your own power. But here's the secret they couldn't erase. The world has always whispered back. In synchronicities and dreams. In the way music cracks open your chest, or a symbol lingers in your mind long after it should have faded. These were never coincidences. They were invitations. Signs that reality is not solid stone but clay. That thought, emotion, and will are chisels sharper than steel. And if that is true, then everything you've been taught about limits, about who you are, about what is possible, was the real illusion. You've been under a spell all along. It's not the kind with wands or potions, but one written in school bells, news cycles, and polite laughter. The question is, are you ready to break it? From the moment you could speak, you were being initiated into an invisible order. It's not an order of magicians, but of engineers or cadics of obedience. Understood something you were never meant to know, that the human mind, unshackled, is porous to possibility. A living altar where thought, emotion, and intention weave into reality itself. To keep you from that truth, they built an architecture, not of stone cathedrals or marble palaces, but of rules, bells, screens, and subtle prohibitions. This was their fortress, a cage so elegant you mistook it for freedom. Walk through any school and listen closely. The ringing of the bell is not neutral, it is ritual timing. A chime that breaks your rhythm, resets your focus, reminds you that you belong to the system's clock, not your own pulse. The desks aligned in rows are not furniture, they are pews facing the altar of authority, where the teacher speaks doctrine as if it were scripture, textbooks, stripped of wonder, read like censored grimoires, offering only what fits the mechanical worldview. Each lesson is a spell, each repetition a binding. By the time you leave childhood, you have been exorcised of your own magic. You no longer trust the strange pull of synchronicities, the weight of dreams, the resonance of symbols. Instead, you recite formulas that flatten the world into numbers. You trade visions for data. You learn to laugh at anything that whispers of the unseen, and so the door is sealed. But this sealing wasn't an accident. It was design. Societies don't thrive on visionaries. They thrive on predictability. Farmers sow wheat, soldiers march, consumers spend. To achieve that, the architecture must suppress the wild river of imagination and funnel it into a narrow canal of obedience. True magic is unpredictable, unruly, dangerous. It bends probabilities, opens doorways, invites demons of desire, ambition, and rebellion. To those in control, that chaos is unacceptable. So the architecture doesn't merely discourage magic, it demonizes it. Whisper to an invisible friend and you are delusional. Feel energies in a room and you are overly sensitive. Notice patterns in events and you are paranoid. Every word is a hex designed to reframe intuition as error and error as shame. This is the genius of their design. They didn't have to burn grimoires. They only had to burn curiosity. Look closer and you'll see the same structure mirrored in every institution. In the church, kneeling rituals and repeated prayers train you to outsource power upward, to a sanctioned deity, stripping you of your own authority. In government, pledges, anthems, and flags operate as collective sigils, binding millions into synchronized belief. In media, cycles of outrage and distraction churn like ceremonial drums, ensuring your attention. The currency of modern sacrifice pours into altars you never chose. None of this is accidental. Ritual was never eliminated. It was weaponized. You are not outside the ritual, you are inside their ritual. Imagine. For a moment, a candlelit chamber where hooded figures chant in unison, invoking forces to bend the crowd's will. It sounds like a scene from medieval occultism, but in truth, it is every stadium where voices chant an anthem, every campaign rally where slogans echo, every advertisement where a logo pulses like a sigil across your screen. You feel the vibration, the energy, the collective trance, and you mistake it for entertainment. Yet beneath the spectacle, the architecture of evil hums, its purpose. Not to show you that magic is false, but to ensure you never recognize that you were practicing it all along. This architecture is not made of concrete or steel, it is woven from the invisible threads of language, rhythm, and repetition. Language was the first cage. The moment you were told that fantasy means worthless and imagination means childish, the bars closed around you. Rhythm was the second. The cycles of weeks, schedules, fiscal years, school calendars, all of them designed to override your body's organic tides, replacing lunar and solar rhythms with artificial time. Repetition was the third. Say something often enough and it doesn't just become true, it becomes real, encoded into the unconscious as law. That is how the architecture solidifies. The tragedy is that you were not born powerless. You were born porous, aware, electric. As a child, you felt the hum of unseen presences. You dreamed in archetypes that transcended your culture. You acted instinctively, as a magician making wishes, drawing symbols, sensing atmospheres. But the architecture intervened. Slowly, gently, it closed the gates, one by one. First by ridicule, then by distraction, finally by fear. By the time you were grown, the only magic you recognized was fiction on a screen. The only rituals you tolerated were consumer habits, and the only gods you bowed to were invisible corporations whose logos glowed like neon idols above every street. And here lies the dark brilliance. They didn't kill magic, they inverted it. Every news cycle is a spell of fear. Every advertisement is a sigil of desire. Every debt contract is a blood pact disguised as paperwork. Every anthem is an invocation to a flag that operates like an egregore. You are surrounded by ritual, not freed from it. You are immersed in sorcery, but not your own. That is the architecture of evil, a world where you live inside rituals you never chose, casting spells you never wrote, feeding altars you never agreed to serve. Step back and look at the pattern, and the truth sharpens. The architecture is not random, it is hierarchical, echoing the grimoires of old. At the top, the priesthood of authority cloaked now not in robes, but in suits. Their liturgy spoken not in Latin, but in legal codes, policies, and press releases. Beneath them, the chorus. Media voices chanting daily mantras, academic voices reciting controlled theories, cultural influencers weaving enchantments in neon, and at the base, the multitude, repeating what they've been told, unaware that repetition is incantation, and incantation shapes reality. This is not paranoia, it is design. For centuries, rulers understood what mystics always whispered. Belief is the root of power. Control belief, and you control reality itself. And so they engineered belief as an industry, manufacturing consensus like a factory, forging certainty like chains. Your imagination was not dismissed because it was useless. It was dismissed because it was dangerous. Your intuition was not ridiculed because it was silly. It was ridiculed because it was potent. Every dismissal was a ward. Every laugh was a curse. Every law was a line drawn across the spellbook of your soul, telling you which pages to read and which to burn. But architecture, no matter how immense, is never eternal. Structures crack, stone erodes, and the truth has a way of bleeding through, seeping back like water through fractures. Even now, you feel it, the dissonance, the flicker, the small tremors that reveal the cage for what it is. That tremor is not weakness. It is your original magic, straining against the architecture. And once you see the bars, once you name the ritual, the spell begins to falter. For every spell requires one ingredient above all, your belief. Withdraw it, and even the grandest architecture begins to collapse into dust. If words are the cage, then symbols are the keys, and the jailers know this better than you ever will. Magic has never been about shouting commands into the void. It has always been about speaking in the oldest dialect reality recognizes, symbol. A burning candle speaks louder than 100 rational arguments. A spiral etched into dirt whispers across centuries. A sigil carved into wax carries a weight no linear sentence can hold. You feel it in your bones, even if you cannot explain why. The subconscious does not speak English or Latin, or any tongue taught in schools. It speaks in images, patterns, shapes, colors, sounds. It is a language older than nations, older than alphabets, older even than the gods people once carved into idols. Think back to the first symbols you ever learned. A cross, a circle, flag rippling above your school, golden arch glowing above a fast food shrine. Did you ever wonder why these images embed themselves into your memory long after words fade? Because they bypass the gatekeeper of reason and slip into the bloodstream of meaning? They are not decorations, they are instructions. Each symbol is a command line written in a language you were never officially taught, but instinctively understand. Ritual magicians of the old world knew this. They drew sigils to encode intention, compressing vast desire into a single glyph. They painted pentagrams, spirals, planetary seals. They wore colors that resonated with planets, chanted syllables that vibrated the spine, traced shapes in the air to anchor thought into matter. Every motion, every sound, every gesture was symbolic, and therefore potent. They weren't playing games with superstition. They were hacking the operating system of the psyche, sending commands to the part of the self that governs reality itself. And yet, while you were taught to dismiss this as superstition, you were being drowned in it daily. Corporate logos are modern sigils, designed not for gods but for consumers. The bitten apple, the swoosh, the golden arch each, one created by design firms who understand archetypal geometry, color psychology, and repetition. You might laugh at the old magician drawing a circle in chalk, but you walk willingly into the circle of a brand every time you see its glowing sign. Political banners are not mere cloth. They are talismans of national egregores, charged with blood, song, and oath. Even the currency in your wallet is a talisman, decorated with pyramids, eyes, and seals that echo ancient grimoires. This is not coincidence. It is continuity. It's the same language of power translated into modern costume. Symbols are not inert. They are alive when charged with belief. Cross without believers is just 2 lines of wood. With believers, it becomes a bridge between worlds, a ward against death, an engine of empires. A flag without allegiance is fabric. With allegiance, it becomes a field of energy, a force men will kill or die for. A logo without consumers is meaningless. With consumers, it becomes a living thought form, an egregore that feeds on attention. Every repeated glance, every whispered pledge, every emotional surge is fuel. You are not just seeing symbols, you are charging them. Now consider what happens when you learn to create your own. When you sit with a blank page, draw a symbol charged with desire, focus, and emotion, and fold it into your unconscious. You are speaking directly to the architect of your reality. You are bypassing the cages of language and planting a seed in the dark soil of the subconscious. That seed grows in silence, pushing roots into unseen layers until, without warning, it blooms in your lived experience. This is why the ancients drew sigils, built temples, carved runes. They were writing code into the dream machine. But the system has inverted this practice. They've filled your environment with ready-made sigils, so you never bother to make your own. Every billboard, every logo, every headline framed with repeating archetypes, these are the spells you live under. They tell you what to value, what to fear, what to desire. You may think you are immune, but the subconscious doesn't argue. It absorbs. A red sign with sharp edges increases urgency. A blue banner inspires trust. A circle suggests unity. A triangle commands focus. You are bathed in this grammar daily, and every choice you make is nudged by it. Magic was not destroyed. It was outsourced. You've been speaking the language of symbols all along, only not for yourself. Sensory proof surrounds you. Walk into a cathedral. The smell of incense alters your brainwaves. Stained glass floods your eyes with archetypal colors. Chanting vibrations resonate through your bones. This is ritual architecture, a symbolic language embodied in stone, scent, and sound. Now walk into a mall. The scent of artificial vanilla softens your mood. Logos gleam like icons. Music sets rhythm for consumption. Different temple, same spell. The form has changed, the function has not. What does this mean for you? It means the key to liberation is not to reject symbols, but to reclaim them. To stop letting others write your spellbook. To craft your own glyphs, charge your own talismans, curate your own altars. It is not superstition, it is literacy. You are learning to speak the language that has been spoken to you your whole life. And the moment you become fluent, the moment you realize that every choice of symbol is a choice of reality, you shift from being programmed to being programmer. But beware, symbols are double-edged. They don't just reflect, they amplify. A sigil made in desperation amplifies chaos. A talisman carved in fear attracts fear. This is why shadow work matters. The symbol is not more powerful than the energy you pour into it. Rituals are mirrors. They reveal what you carry, and if what you carry is fractured, the reflection fractures too. That is why the system feeds you symbols laced with fear and desire, ensures you are always charging their egregores with divided energy. There is a deeper danger still. Once you awaken to symbols, you begin to see them everywhere, and the temptation is to become paranoid. But paranoia is just another trap, another inversion. The truth is not that symbols enslave you, it is that they respond to you. The same golden arch that lures the distracted can become your reminder that symbols are technology. The same anthem that hypnotizes crowds can remind you that rhythm is spell work. Once you understand the mechanics, every symbol can be stolen back, hacked, rewritten. Look again at the world. The tattoos on your skin, the jewelry you wear, the art on your walls. These are not random decorations. They're symbols charged with your attention. You are already a magician, whether you admit it or not. The only question is, are you fluent in your own language? Or are you still speaking in borrowed glyphs, feeding systems that never had your freedom in mind? And perhaps the oldest question, if the world itself is a text written in symbols in a circle. River is line, mountain is triangle. What does it mean that you are here noticing? It means you are not a reader. You are a scribe. And reality, whether you admit it or not, is waiting for your mark. Blood has always been the price. Before coins, before contracts, before the silent glow of numbers on a digital screen, there was only blood. It is the oldest currency, the one thing every power, human or inhuman, has always demanded. Walk into any ancient temple and you will smell it even now in the stones. The iron tang, hot. The rust-colored stains long since scrubbed yet never erased. Sacrifice was never superstition, it was transaction, a pulse for a promise, a vein opened for a vision, a beast's cry for a kingdom's harvest. The grimoire writers knew this. They recorded rituals where kings poured blood on altars to ensure victory, where tribes offered the firstborn calf or child to guarantee the rains. To outsiders, these practices seem barbaric, but to those inside the ritual, blood was mathematics and exchange rate between worlds. The spilling of it was not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was a ledger, a contract signed in the most undeniable ink. For blood carries life itself, and life is power. It pulses with memory, with fear, with hunger. Nothing else can stand in for it. Nothing else glows so bright in the eyes of gods and demons. But here's the truth you were never told. Blood never stopped being currency, it only changed form. Today, you are still bled daily, only the cut is invisible. Instead of knives, they use clocks. Instead of altars of stone, they use screens. Instead of chalices, they use contracts. Every hour you give to a job you hate. Every ounce of energy poured into a system that does not feed you. Every dream surrendered to exhaustion that is blood drained drop by drop. The system discovered it did not need to spill your veins, if it could bleed your spirit. Time, attention, and desire became the new sacrificial offerings. And you hand them over willingly because you were trained not to see the exchange. Think of how you feel after endless scrolling, after arguments sparked by headlines, after consuming stories designed to inflame. You feel drained, hollow, weaker than before. That is no accident. Your energy or metaphorical blood was siphoned. Media outrage is a ritual designed to ignite your emotion, feed your fear, and drink the fuel that could have powered your own magic. The architecture of evil learned long ago. It is not necessary to slit throats when you can slit attention. Both spill life, both stain altars. One just leaves fewer questions. And yet blood persists in literal form too. War is blood ritual on an industrial scale. Bodies sacrificed not for gods, but for nations, flags, and the invisible egregores of power. Soldiers do not die randomly. They die to charge symbols, to sanctify lines on maps, to keep ancient hierarchies fed. Every battlefield is an altar, every drop of blood an offering to forces that consume without end. You are told it is noble, but it is ritual. You are told it is necessary, but it is exchange. Look also at medicine, at the transfusion of blood from one body to another. Here, too, lies the truth. Blood is energy, transferable, potent. Life can move from vessel to vessel. What the mystics intuited, science now confirms. This is why blood remains sacred, feared, protected. It is more than liquid, it is essence, record, and flame. But return to the personal. Every ritual you perform, even modern ones, still require blood, even if unseen. The candle you light burns with the fire of your attention. The symbol you draw pulses with the force of your emotion. The affirmation you repeat is meaningless unless soaked in the blood of your belief. Magic without sacrifice is theater. True magic costs. It asks not for coins or trinkets, but for your energy, your vulnerability, your commitment. The demon does not want what is cheap. It wants what is alive. Consider your own daily sacrifices, the sleep you trade for endless work, the time you hand to people who drain you, the dreams you abandoned because fear told you they were too costly. This, too, is blood. Every compromise is a cut. Every surrender is a drip. And the question is never whether you will bleed, is only for whom. Will you bleed for their altars or your own? Sensory truths confirm it. Recall the pounding in your temples after a day of stress, the hot flush in your chest after rage, the trembling in your hands when you pour yourself into desire. This is blood moved, stirred, awakened. It is the body's way of telling you that sacrifice is occurring whether or not you recognize it. Your rituals are happening constantly, and the blood price is always being paid. The ancients painted their altars red because they knew the symbol matched the act. Today, your altars are glowing screens, and the red is the endless scroll of alerts, likes, and notifications. You may not see veins split, but you feel your life force leak out with every anxious refresh. You wake more tired than before, more fragmented, less whole. This is blood sacrifice rebranded as entertainment. And yet hidden within this dark truth lies liberation. If blood is the oldest currency, then the moment you reclaim authorship of your sacrifices, you reclaim power. Offer your blood to rituals of your own choosing. Spend your time on creation instead of consumption. Bleed your energy into visions that matter, not distractions designed to drain you. Sacrifice, yes, but sacrifice upward, not downward. Because power always follows sacrifice. Kings knew it, priests knew it, corporations know it. So that is why they demand offerings daily, whether in taxes, in hours, in fear. They know that what you sacrifice becomes what you serve, and the demon within you knows it too. Every time you deny your deeper hunger, every time you bleed for something you despise, the demon stirs and whispers, "This is not the altar you were meant to feed." Blood has never stopped flowing. It stains history. It saturates the present. It fuels the future. The question is not whether you will give it, but whether you will finally recognize the exchange and decide who receives it. Because the oldest currency cannot be hoarded, can only be spent, and every drop writes a line in the ledger of your life. The only choice you have is whether that ledger belongs to you or to them. Every spell is a contract. Every prayer whispered, every wish spoken, every belief repeated is an agreement struck between your will and the forces that answer it. Magic has always operated on this architecture. Request, offering, agreement, consequence. The ancient grimoires did not hide this. They spelled it out with chilling clarity. To summon, you must call. To call, you must offer. To offer, you must bind yourself. And once bound, there is no escape without cost. The story of Faust endures because it is not fiction, it is template. A man makes a bargain with Mephistopheles, trading soul for knowledge, desire, power. We gasp at his folly, yet we repeat his ritual daily. Every time you whisper, "I can't change," you ink a contract with stagnation. Every time you declare, "I am unlucky," you sign your name beneath misfortune. These phrases are not complaints. They are clauses. They bind you not with paper and ink, but with repetition and belief, which is the oldest ink of all. You may think you are innocent of sorcery, but your words, charged with emotion, are signatures. And reality always honors a signature. In older times, the pacts were explicit. Blood signed on parchment, oaths sworn under moonlight, tokens buried at crossroads. The demon appeared, terms were spoken, bargains sealed. Today, the pacts are silent. A job contract that demands your hours, your energy, your imagination, it is still a pact. Only translated into corporate language. A debt agreement that chains you to payments for decades, it is a blood oath written in numbers. Even the digital terms and conditions you accept without reading is ritual. You click, you agree, you bind.
Not to Mephistopheles, perhaps, but to a system every bit as hungry.
Do you see the inversion? The old world, a pact, was terrifying because it required awareness. You knew what you were trading. You knew the price. In the new world, pacts are engineered so you never notice. You bleed without realizing. You serve without remembering when you agreed. The demon's contract has not disappeared, has only been disguised as paperwork, slogans, beliefs. Feel the knot in your stomach when you sign something you don't believe in. Hear the whisper of unease when you repeat a phrase you know cages you. That tension is the demon at the table, smirking, knowing that you have agreed without realizing. For the demon does not care about formality, cares about consent. And every time you repeat, accept, or submit, you consent. But pacts are not only external. The most dangerous contracts are the ones you have made with yourself. Somewhere deep in shadow, you may have vowed never to trust again, never to risk again, never to rise again. These self-forged pacts are the most binding of all, because they are signed not in paper, but in scar tissue. They are written in the moments of deepest fear, greatest pain. And once written, they become law inside you. You find yourself circling the same patterns, the same failures, the same disappointments, because the contract is still active. You are living inside a spell you cast long ago. This is why shadow work matters. It is not therapy, it's contract review. It is finding the old signatures scrawled in your subconscious and asking, who did I agree to serve? Which demon did I invite into my house? Because every outcome in your life carries the signature of a pact, the lover you can't escape, the failure you repeat, the fear you cannot outrun. All of them are evidence of an agreement once made. Now consider the modern Faustian bargains. You trade authenticity for approval. You trade freedom for stability. You trade time for wages. None of these are inherently evil. Every pact can serve if chosen consciously.
Sigh.
The danger is not the contract itself, but the unconscious signing. When you agree without awareness, you live someone else's spell. When you sign without understanding, you pay interest you never owed. And the demon grins, because the oldest rule has always been this: ignorance is no defense. Pact is binding whether or not you knew you made it. Look at the world of finance. Every loan is an invocation. The banker plays the role of priest, cloaked not in robes but in tailored suits. The signature on the dotted line is the offering. The debt is the binding clause, and the consequence is years, sometimes lifetimes, of service. The Faustian template repeats, only the demon has swapped his horns for interest rates. Yet the exchange is the same. Your future for their power. The language of contracts has always been sacred. That is why legal documents use archaic phrases, why oaths are sworn on books, why signatures are demanded in ink. You may think it is bureaucracy, but in truth, it is ritual. The repetition, the symbols, the weight of language, all of it mirrors what grimoires once prescribed. In both cases, the purpose is the same: to bind. But here is the secret. Contracts cut both ways. If you can bind yourself, you can unbind. If you can unconsciously sign, you can consciously renegotiate. Every contract begins with words, and words can be rewritten. Every pact begins with intention, and intention can be redirected. You are not doomed to live forever under the old clauses. But you must first see them, name them, call them out of shadow and into light. Only then can you burn them, bleed them, break them. The ancients spoke of renunciation rituals, ceremonies where one tore apart a pact by fire, by blood, by declaration. You can do the same. Write the belief that binds you on paper. Burn it as offering. Speak aloud the clause you no longer serve and revoke it. It sounds simple, almost childish, but remember, the subconscious does not speak reason, it speaks ritual. A burned paper carries more power than 1,000 rational thoughts, because the act itself becomes the new contract. And reality honors signatures carved in flame. The truth is this: you are always in contract. The only question is with whom? With your higher self or your fear? With your demon or your God? With your freedom or your cage? System thrives because you do not ask. But once you do, once you review the ledgers of your life and see whose names are written beside yours, you reclaim the pen. And in that moment, you cease being prey and become magician again, so the warning remains. Every word you speak is ink. Every thought you repeat is a clause. Every emotion you charge is a signature. You are signing daily, hourly, without pause. The demon is always listening. The only question is, will you continue to sign blindly, or will you at last write contracts of your own design? What if the things you were taught to fear were never evil, but keys deliberately hidden from your grasp? Society has always told you that rebellion is sin, that lust is corruption, that ambition is pride. Yet these very impulses, desire, defiance, hunger, sovereignty, are the precise forces that ignite magic. They are the flames that refuse to be contained. This is the inverted moral code, a system that brands your deepest power as poison so that you never dare to taste it. Think of Lucifer, the archetype most demonized. The light bringer, the one who refused to kneel, who chose knowledge over blind obedience. His story was twisted into villainy, yet beneath the layers you glimpse the truth. Lucifer is not merely the tempter, but the reminder that sovereignty has a cost, and that cost is disobedience. The inverted moral code tells you rebellion is damnation, but in the language of the soul, rebellion is initiation. Or take Lilith, whispered about as the first wife of Adam, who refused submission. She has been painted as a monster of the night, a devourer of children, a seductress. But in her refusal lies something older than sin: the assertion of sovereignty. She embodies the shadow society wanted: buried female autonomy, untamed sexuality, the refusal to be controlled. To repress her is to repress the archetype of self-possession itself. No wonder she was recast as a demon. The inverted moral code demands that the very forces which could awaken you must be dressed as threats. This inversion reaches into every crevice of your life. Hunger becomes greed, desire becomes sin, power becomes corruption, anger becomes instability. Every potent force within you is reframed as flaw. The system tells you virtue lies in meekness, obedience, patience. It praises you when you are compliant, silent, servile. But do you feel the crack in that narrative? Does your body not vibrate with rage when you are told to sit down, be quiet, obey? That vibration is not evil. It is the demon stirring. The demon archetype lives in your shadow, waiting for recognition. It is the voice that says, I want more. I refuse this cage. I choose myself. Society tells you to silence it. Religion tells you to exorcise it. Yet magic tells you to listen. Because the demon is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It is the part of you that carries what you repressed, what you feared, what you were told was forbidden. And until you embrace it, your rituals remain hollow, your contracts fractured. A magician who denies their demon is like a priest without altar, empty, impotent. Look into a mirror in darkness, candlelight flickering, and watch your own face shift. Shadows carve unfamiliar lines, eyes gleam as if something ancient peers through. That unease you feel is the inverted moral code unraveling. You are not seeing possession. You are seeing reflection, your own power staring back. The system wants you to recoil, to call it evil, to shut the mirror. But if you stay, if you breathe, if you dare to meet that gaze, you discover it is not a monster. It is you, unmasked. The moral code of the system was always meant to serve control. It told slaves that obedience was holy. It told peasants that poverty was virtue. It told women that submission was sacred. It told soldiers that violence was loyalty. It told you that everything wild in you was sin. Because tame animals are easier to herd, and so the inverted moral code took your lion's roar and taught you to call it shame. But magic requires roar, requires hunger, rage, lust, ambition, all the raw forces exiled into shadow.
Oh.
A ritual without desire is lifeless. A spell without passion is ash. A pact without ambition is void. This is why magicians throughout history invoked demons. Not because they worshipped evil, but because they understood that what society called evil was actually fuel. They dared to speak with the archetypes others buried, to dance with Lilith, to walk with Samael, to rebel with Lucifer. In that rebellion, they found not damnation but ignition. Imagine for a moment a ritual chamber. Black candles burn, smoke coils upward, the air heavy with myrrh. The circle is drawn not to keep the demon out, but to give it form within. The magician calls not begging for safety, but summoning what is hidden. And when the demon arrives, it does not drag them to hell. It speaks in riddles, mirrors their desires, tests their will, and forces them to face what they've buried: ambition, lust, defiance. This is initiation. The system calls it blasphemy. Magic calls it awakening. The inverted moral code is the most brilliant prison because it convinces you to police yourself. You censor your desires before anyone else can. You swallow your rage before it escapes your lips. You bury your power before it can challenge the throne. You become your own jailer, locking the cell and handing the key away. This is why rebellion feels so terrifying, not because it is evil, but because you were conditioned to feel fear at the threshold of freedom. But here lies the paradox. When you finally step into the forbidden, you discover it is not a pit, but a door. Your rage becomes clarity, lust becomes creation, ambition becomes sovereignty, power becomes responsibility. The inversion flips again, and you realize that what they called sin was survival. What they called corruption was courage. What they called evil was energy. You begin to see morality not as law, but as spellwork crafted by those who needed you docile. And so the question rises: will you continue to obey the inverted moral code, branding your demon as enemy, suppressing the forces that could awaken you? Or will you dare to break taboo, to look into the mirror, to call your demon by name? Because once you do, once you embrace the archetypes you were told to fear, your magic sharpens, your rituals ignite, your contracts align. You cease being divided, you become whole. The truth is, morality has never been about truth. It has always been about power. The inverted moral code is proof. Every time you suppress yourself, you feed them. Every time you embrace yourself, you starve them. And the demon within waits, patient, amused, knowing that sooner or later you will realize that the path to freedom was never in obedience. It was always an inversion. You were taught that ritual belonged to the past dusty temples, secret cults, hooded figures chanting in caves. But look around you now. Ritual never ended. It only changed its mask. The truth is that you are surrounded by ritual every day, swimming in it, repeating it, feeding it. And the cruelest trick is this: because you do not recognize it as ritual, you cannot see the spell it casts over you. Consider the national anthem, stadium packed with tens of thousands. The lights dim, the crowd rises. Hands over hearts, voices in unison. The flag ripples above, colors illuminated like stained glass in a modern cathedral. You are told it is patriotism, but strip away the labels and you will see it for what it is: invocation. A collective chant designed to synchronize hearts, align breath, and charge a symbol with power. The energy in the air thickens. Some cry, some feel pride, some feel awe. This is not entertainment, tea is ritual. The anthem is a spell, the flag a sigil, a stadium a temple. Now step into a shopping mall. Music hums at a carefully calculated tempo to regulate your heartbeat. Scents are pumped through vents to stir nostalgia, hunger, or desire. Logos gleam like icons above altars of glass and light. You walk between aisles like between pews. Now the act of purchase is not just transaction, it is communion. Now the credit card swipe is your offering, the receipt your scripture, the shopping bag your talisman. You leave lighter not only in wallet, but in spirit, because ritual always requires sacrifice. Look at your phone. Every morning you wake, eyes still fogged with sleep, and you reach for it. The glow is the first candle. The scroll is the first chant. Notifications flash like omens. You do not call this ritual, you'll call it routine. But routine is simply ritual drained of awareness. The difference is only whether you choose it or whether it chooses you. Ritual has always been about repetition, symbolism, and emotional charge, and those three elements flood your daily life. Political rallies, sporting events, brand advertising, even algorithmic trends, they all use rhythm, symbol, and repetition to draw you into ritual space. The stadium, the mall, the feed, these are not random. They're temples designed by new priests, corporations, governments, media. They do not burn incense, they burn bandwidth. They do not chant in Latin, they chant in slogans. But the mechanics are identical. Sensory evidence surrounds you. Think of the chill in your spine when thousands of voices chant the same name. The strange trance of clapping in rhythm with strangers. The sudden tears when music swells in unison. You call it inspiration, but the body knows ritual. It knows when it is being pulled into current. And whether or not you consent, your blood, your attention, your breath become offerings. And here lies the dark brilliance. By hiding ritual in plain sight, the system ensures you can no longer tell sacred from mundane. You laugh at a solitary witch lighting a candle in her room, but you stand unthinking in a crowd chanting slogans at a glowing screen. You mock the shaman who paints symbols on stone, but you pledge allegiance to a flag stitched in the same geometries. The old rituals never vanished. They were absorbed, sanitized, rebranded. And in mocking them, you mock the only tools that could have freed you. But there is another layer. You yourself are a ritual. Every morning you wake and recite the same incantations in your mind. I'm tired. I'm late. Can't. I won't. These are affirmations, negative but charged. You repeat them daily, emotionally, rhythmically.
What?
And reality listens. You dress in certain clothes, not just for function, but for identity. Uniforms, suits, brands each. One is costume for the ritual of belonging. You eat at certain times, not because you are hungry, but because the clock says so. The body's tides are overridden by the liturgy of schedules. Even your relationships become rituals of repetition. The same arguments, the same patterns, the same spells recited across years. You think you are living freely, but in truth, you are officiating ceremonies you never recognized as such. Why does this matter? Because once you see ritual everywhere, you can no longer be blind. Awareness breaks the trance. You begin to choose. Ritual is not evil, it is a tool. It can enslave or liberate, depending on whose script you follow. When you reclaim ritual consciously, you stop bleeding for their altars and begin charging your own. Light a candle with intention, and you invert the ritual of the feed. Walk instead of scroll, and your footsteps become incantation. Sing your own song instead of chanting theirs, and you rewrite the spell in your bloodstream. The ancients understood this. They marked solstices, equinoxes, lunar phases, bathed, fasted, feasted, prayed not as superstition, but as synchronization with forces larger than themselves. Modernity mocks this as primitive, yet bows to rituals of the market and media. Which is truly primitive? Aligning with the stars, or aligning with stock prices, which is superstition? Believing the moon influences water, or believing money printed on paper holds ultimate value? Ritual is the engine of reality. It fuels egregores, charges symbols, binds communities, and rewrites possibility. You are already a practitioner whether you admit it or not. The question is not whether you will perform rituals, it is whose. Will you keep bowing to theirs, disguised in flags, screens, and slogans? Or will you reclaim the ancient technology, choose your own symbols, write your own chants, ignite your own fire? The system's greatest fear is not that you will reject ritual, but that you will remember, that you will wake from the trance and recognize that every rhythm of breath, every choice of word, every repeated gesture is spellwork. That you will step into ritual consciously, deliberately, sovereign, because once you do, you no longer feed their machine. You begin to feed your own becoming. And when that happens, ritual is no longer hidden. It is everywhere. The anthem, the mall, the scroll, the candle, they are not separate. They are the same river. The only difference is whether you drift as a captive or swim as a magician. Awakening never arrives as thunder. It comes as a crack, flicker, a trembling in the edges of what you thought was solid. At first, you dismiss it déjà vu, coincidence, a trick of nerves. But then it happens again. You think of a friend and they call. You dream of water and the next morning the pipes burst. You step left instead of right and narrowly miss disaster. Slowly, the illusion that reality is fixed begins to erode. The system taught you to call these moments accidents. Magic calls them invitations. To awaken is to realize the cage was never locked. It was scripted. Every school bell, every anthem, every logo, every whispered rule was programming. It's not digital, but psychic. Not mechanical, but ritual. And once you glimpse the code, you cannot unsee it. The slogans reveal themselves as chants. The uniforms reveal themselves as costumes. The schedules reveal themselves as bindings. You begin to feel the invisible lattice pulsing beneath events, patterns weaving like constellations across your life. This is the moment initiation begins, when what was once invisible becomes unbearable to ignore. Science itself has begun to stumble on the edges of this truth. The double-slit experiment showed particles behaving differently when observed, as though reality were aware of awareness. Princeton's Paralab measured minds nudging machines, intention-bending probability by small but undeniable margins. The many worlds interpretation whispers that every decision births a new timeline, each outcome existing simultaneously, infinite and parallel. Mystics nod, for they have always said the same. Reality is not singular, but woven, a fabric of branching paths. Magic is not about forcing the world to bend it. It is about shifting into the thread where what you seek already lives. Feel this in your body. Recall a decision that changed everything. The job you took or refused, the lover you stayed with or left, the city you entered or avoided. The moment was small, mundane, yet afterward your life became unrecognizable. That is, timeline shift. The air seemed denser, the days smelled different. You felt, if only for a breath, that you had stepped sideways into another world. That sensation is not imagination, it is recognition. You are walking through a maze of infinite mirrors, and every choice is a doorway. But awakening is not comfortable. It is rupture. To see the code is to see that much of your life was not chosen, but programmed. You repeated mantras you did not write. You bled for altars you did not build. You obeyed moral codes designed not for truth, but for control. The first taste of awakening is bitterness. A rage at years stolen, at desires denied, at demons buried, and yet this rage is holy. It is the fire that melts the old bindings. Without it, you would slip back into sleep. The second taste is terror, because if reality is not fixed, then nothing is stable. If symbols can be rewritten, then nothing is certain. If timelines shift with thought, then responsibility is infinite. You are no longer a passenger, you are driver, navigator, architect. Many turn back at this threshold, preferring the safety of illusion. But those who stay, who breathe through the terror, discover that what looked like chaos is actually clay. You were always shaping it. You just forgot your hands were on the wheel. And then comes the revelation. You were never outside the ritual. You were the ritual. Every thought charged with emotion was a spell. Every repeated word a chant. Every belief a contract. You thought you were powerless, but you were feeding altars with every breath. Awakening is not learning. A new magic hit is remembering the one you have been casting all along. The system does not fear your rituals. It fears your awareness of them. Sensory cracks open in daily life. You walk down a street you've seen 1,000 times, and suddenly the colors hum differently. The symbol on a billboard sears into your vision, and you recognize it as a sigil. A conversation spirals into perfect synchronicity, each word echoing something you read in a dream. Music plays and the lyrics align with your hidden question. These are not accidents, they are alignments. You have tuned into the current that was always there, flowing beneath the noise. The danger of awakening is isolation. The system ensures that those who see the cracks are ridiculed. They call you paranoid, delusional, conspiratorial. They remind you of the old spell. Ridicule first, suppress second, accept never. Yet what is paranoia but the beginning of pattern recognition? What is delusion but language for truths the system has no room to name? If you feel mad, remember, initiation has always looked like madness to the uninitiated. But the deeper danger is arrogance. To awaken is intoxicating. To feel the veil thin, to see the patterns align, to taste the current hit makes you feel chosen. But magic is not proof of superiority. It is responsibility. You are not a god. You are not free from consequence. You're simply aware of the architecture. You are learning to program rather than be programmed. The humility to accept this is what separates the magician from the tyrant. The ultimate revelation of awakening is this: reality listens. Not sometimes, not for special few, but always. The texture of your thoughts, the resonance of your emotions, the focus of your will, they ripple outward, shaping the web of probabilities. To realize this is to lose the luxury of blame. You can no longer pretend you are powerless. You can no longer recite the old mantras of victimhood. You hold the pen, and the page is endless. This is liberation, but it is also burden, so the question remains: what will you write? Now that you know the anthem is a chant, the logo a sigil, the schedule a binding, will you continue to serve them? Or will you craft your own ritual, write your own spell, bleed for your own altar? Because once awake, the choice is unavoidable. To sleep again would require willful ignorance, and that door does not reopen. You cannot unknow. You cannot unsee. The cage is cracked, the mirrors are shifting. In the silence between heartbeats, you feel it. The truth pressing against your skin like a storm behind glass. You are not waiting for magic. You are not searching for ritual. You were both all along. You were the ritual, and the ritual is awake. You were never outside the ritual, you were its heartbeat. The only question now is, will you choose the spell, or let it be chosen for you? If these truths stirred something in you, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and subscribe. The next chapter of Forbidden Knowledge awaits.